Welcome back to The Watch, and we are reviewing Andor episode 4 and 5, both of them together, because we missed last week. I was sick, and also my wife, the lady, is joining us.
Hi. I was away last week with kids at a family commitment, so yes. Last week didn't happen, so we're doing 2 for 1.
Two for one, look at that. And look, I do have a lot of things to say before we dive right into it. If you haven't heard me say already, I'll say it again. The graphic novel adaptation of my book, Shadow the Conqueror, is available on Indiegogo. Make sure to secure your copy. It's a great story. We've got one of the best artists that you can find. Collector edition covers and leather-bound available. I really think you guys will get a kick out of it because, I don't know, I read it and I just get drawn in and immersed in the story. And thank you to everyone who is supporting it. We've just passed 250,000. Like, wow! It's amazing.
That's huge.
It's huge. Thank you to everyone who has supported us in that. And if you can share it, if you've already signed up, you can share it to, I think there's a lot of people who haven't heard about it that would love this. And so if we can get the message known, that would be even better, because the further we can push this, the more I plan to do with it. Make more graphic novels, because comic books are awesome, stories are awesome. Okay, we can dive into Andor now. I have some interesting things to say on it. At first, I'm interested to hear on what my wife's thoughts are. What were your thoughts on episode 4 and 5?
I'm actually enjoying it more and more. Not every scene is, super duper amazing, but the show is engaging enough that I do want to watch more. I'm enjoying seeing some of the different aspects of the Star Wars universe, of the Empire and the Rebels, and just seeing various different characters develop.
It's interesting. I enjoyed these episodes more as well. I feel there was less pointless filler. It's still very slow burn, slow going, but it seems a lot of what they were showing in these episodes were leading to something and contextualizing something. And if you're interested in what I thought was pointless filler, well, go check out our episode 1 to 3 review, and we give a lot of examples. Like there was like this scene of, just a character walking through a street, going into a shop, then going to a back alley, and going up a town to make a phone call. Like there was a lot of pointless filler that made those first episodes really boring for me. When I say first, I mean episode 1 and 2. Episode 3, I felt, had decent things in it, not phenomenal, but okay. It's interesting. My view of episode 4 and 5 is kind of like episode 3. Now, I will say, right, Star Wars has a lot. It needs to do a lot to get any goodwill out of me. I've been pretty upset by the crap that they made recently, but I will acknowledge the good when it's good, and there were some decent things in these episodes, okay? One, I think, which is actually quite consistent with the show overall, the character work is actually quite good. I would say it's even good now, okay? Because we saw some great character work in the previous episodes where they introduced the security big guy, and then the security thin guy, and then the security leader guy. I liked all of them, right? I liked them. I felt the characterizations was actually done really, really well. Andor I had an issue with because I felt it was a blank slate. We got more of his personality and backstory here. I like that there was a bit more character in these episodes with Andor, where he gets upset with people. Don't touch me. Don't talk about my past. These are my kind of things, and his motivations. And that made him a bit more interesting for me in these episodes than the previous ones, where he was pretty dull. Still, I don't think he's a great protagonist. There are more interesting characters around him. But when I'm saying that there were interesting, good character work now, we were introduced to a decent number of new characters, and they all felt pretty well fleshed out and individual. And that's good. You want that. It's been lacking in a lot of shows, especially Star Wars shows. And usually they might, in previous Star Wars shows, they're like caricatures, overdone, over the top, where there was actually kind of a good balance and nuance in these characters, which granted they did show in some other ones. So
yeah, they were all pretty unique, so you kind of knew which character was which. You weren't getting them mixed up. They had their own flair and their own motivations that you could get hints of and things. So it was a good way of introducing new characters.
So they did that really well. I did find it interesting, the operations of the Empire. We got to see some internal operations of the Empire. I did like that. I was like, hey, this is interesting. I haven't seen this side of the Empire. And it wasn't just filler, because what we saw there was contextualizing what a character was going on, their outlook, because there is, I don't want to give, this is the non-spoiler section, but there's a character that, let's just say, she's starting to get suspicious of certain things and connecting certain dots. And the bureaucracy that she has to work through, that's all actually important scene stuff. Even though it's not related to the main plot, it is obviously connected. But sorry, when I say it is related to the main plot, it is not the main plot, but it's very related to it, which keeps you interested. And it was interesting enough with what we saw there. It was interesting with the stuff that we saw with the lady senator. She's like, so this character appears in A New Hope. It's the woman leader of the rebels. You know, many Bothans died, giving us this. That's her. That's that character.
I thought it was because it had the same general style and outfit look that it was going for, and I kind of liked her. In
Rogue One, they got the daughter of the actress of A New Hope to do that character in Rogue One, and I'm not sure if this is the same actress. That hasn't been confirmed, but it might be the daughter. That was interesting, okay? And so there was way more interesting things in this. I would not call Andor good yet. I would say it is average, which means competent. I would maybe give it sitting around a 5. I'm not sure I could be pushed to a 6. When you go over 5 to 6, that's when it's at least good. Barely good, but good, okay? I'm not sure I'm there yet. But still, a 5 is the best Star Wars we've had in a long time.
So for me, a 5 is something that I don't care if I don't come back to. It's watchable and it's fine to have on TV. I would say that this is a little bit above that for me because I would happily come back to it and put it on when the next episode comes up. So I'd probably do a bit above a 5, maybe 6, getting closer to a 7 as the characters develop.
That 7 is very generous.
It is, perhaps, but I'm enjoying it.
Well, yeah, like I said, there were more enjoyable things in this. I am feeling invested in the sense that I want to see them perform this heist. It still is very slow. I mean, and I don't mind a slow burn if it's at least interesting, and I think they're achieving that. So maybe, if I'm invested enough to see what happens, you could push me to a 6, okay? There were less fundamental problems that we got with the first 3 episodes, like I mentioned, so there's less filler and everything like that. I didn't see blatant, stupid, like, plot hole things kind of happen, not because not a lot did happen, but, like, you know, again, watch our review episode 1 to 3, like how they just conveniently walk away from the thing to set up an action scene, and the action scenes are kind of just generic and predictable, and someone dies, we don't really see how they die, and there were those issues. I saw less of those issues with these episodes, and it was easier for me to enjoy. So, look, will it continue to get better? I'm not sure. If it stays at this quality, I might think it's okay, maybe a 6 overall. Because remember, the pointlessness of episode 1 and 2 really brought this, like, my opinion of that show down a lot. They were almost inexcusably filler for me. And it was less now. Less in these episodes. It seems to be moving on a bit, still slow, but a bit more. New characters, interesting. Okay, it's going in a better direction. So that's what I would say, I guess, for the non-spoiler section. Anything you want to add?
No, that's about it for the non-spoiler.
All right.
Keen to get into the spoiler section.
Now we'll go into the spoilers and look at 2 episodes. They're kind of long, so we'll just kind of jump through the main points. All right. This is the scene where basically Andor, Cassian, is getting recruited. And, money is essentially it. He gets offered enough money at the end of it, and even though the rebel guy, this guy here, is trying to get him to commit to something higher, ideal, a greater cause and stuff, he's not fully on board with it yet. And the scene works. I think the characters are consistent in it. It didn't blow me away, but I achieved what it needed to.
My only problem with this scene is when he's told to fix up his arm.
Oh, that's right.
And he puts a bandage over his clothes and just kind of wraps it around and leaves it. Maybe he's really bad at medical stuff and he's just clueless. Mm-hmm. But it just kind of annoyed me that he didn't even take his jacket off and wrap it around the wound itself.
Yeah. I'm glad you reminded me of that, because that is a bit like, what does that do? And then when he takes off his jacket later, we see a bandage on his skin, but he doesn't put... He just wrapped it around.
And look how little that bandage is. And if you see a bit later how big the wound is, like, it's doing nothing but pressing into probably the most injured part of the wound. It's not actually doing anything useful.
Yeah, I agree.
But otherwise, the scene was quite good. You know, you kind of get to see the rebellion trying to be sold to Andor, and he's just not convinced that he wants to put things at risk for an ideal, a hope.
Yep, I agree. Arrives on Coruscant, but this is the basically just seeing Coruscant, and then we get to see the Imperial thing. And there's a bit of a scene where we see some of the internal operations of the Empire. We don't get to see it a lot. I found it interesting. This guy here is like a no fuss, get things done guy, get things done on time. It worked well. Again, the characterization is decent in the show.
And I really enjoyed his description of what they do. They find things that are wrong and try to fix them.
Yes. So I can give this a pass, all right? Why is he asking them what they do when they clearly all know what they do? It's to feed the audience this information. But they contextualize in the sense that the standard generic answer that people will give isn't the answer he wants, and he wants to instill upon them a more plain, direct kind of understanding of their job, and therefore it justifies him asking the question in the first place, and so they pull it off. This is a scene where they are able to give the audience information by asking a question to people that they technically already know because he's expecting an incorrect answer and he wants to correct them. That works. So that's an example of just competent writing. I don't think it's particularly praiseworthy because this is like writing 101. It should be the bare minimum. And just because all the other shows are failing at this dramatically, like Rings of Power, right, doesn't mean that this show should be worth great praise because it achieves just something that should be expected in the first place. It's not that I didn't really see dialogue that blew me away or a great comeback or great writing. It's acceptable.
But I also think that dialogue that doesn't stand out but is understandable and fits in is an accomplishment. Like, it doesn't have to be mind-blowing to...
Good enough can be good enough, especially if there's other things to sell the show on. And so if the dialogue is good enough, yeah, I agree. I can accept it. Doesn't make me love the show for the dialogue. Just at least they're doing that well enough. And there's another sign of them doing something adequately enough. And it's the type of thing that lesser shows would not describe, and it's the reason why they land in the middle of nowhere. So Cassian and this guy, they land. Character arrives. And we're given a bit of a thing where he's dumping new information on this lady who's she's part of a mission. And is it justified to bring in an unknown quantity like ANDOR, who you're not sure is only in for the money, so you're not sure it's going to be fully committed and stuff? And that might say a character like this would never be willing to risk it. The thing is, though, they show later on, I think it's in episode 2, they show that the guy who's recruiting it, that he feels he made a mistake and that is doubting it. And so again, the show picks up on potential plot hole and they fix it by giving the explanation of the character as to why he's risking throwing ANDOR into this situation. Although this scene contextualizes that ANDOR is a redundancy.
Correct, that where they might fall short, he's got enough skills to cover more than one person if one of them gets killed or fails.
And they're implying, though, that they could have still managed to get it done without him. Is just there in case. But the next episode, we find that it's like they would not have been able to succeed without his help at all.
Their chances would have dropped dramatically. They are lacking certain information that would have slowed them down enough to possibly
ruin the whole mission. Yeah. And look, so again, it's not really a plot hole either, because they do act like they discovered it, that they actually did believe they could do the mission without him, is just in case, but then by having him there, he reveals crucial errors that they made that he is able to resolve with his own skill set. I can go with it. And so even potential plot holes like, is it justified throwing him into this? They mostly get through it, okay? So again, the show succeeds in that. They also show everyone in the crew having some reservation, some okay with this new quantity going in. That plays off mostly fine.
All of their reactions are within the characters that gradually get established of their personalities and how they react to things. So everyone reacts the way that they are written.
Yep. I like this scene as well. I think this is done fine, that the Empire is now with the security firm that's working for a corporation. It's like, you stuffed up. now it's happening exactly what the middle guy here said, that now the Empire's attention is on him and they're taking control. And the poor guy, he's like, I had nothing to do with it, but he still gets grilled. And then this guy gets fired. And so...
well, they all pretty much get fired because now the Empire is taking over the job of this corporation security group.
Yeah, but he has to go back home and he is unemployed completely. And then it feels like they're setting him up for a kind of a revenge plot because you see him looking at, ANDOR, Cassian's hollow thing. It's like, it's all your fault, basically. The context of that scene was. Look, this is another thing where you don't see this in incompetent writing, where there's a big plot hole and it's not addressed. And I often say you could fix it with a single line, and they do that. So if you're wondering why I'm feeling more positive about the show than my last review, stuff like this, okay? Because they land in the middle of nowhere and they have to walk a day, like a full day, to get where they're going. And they were on a spaceship. I was like, why the hell did they land so far away? And then Cassian, he asked that, why are we so far away? And they literally explain it. And not only do they explain it, it becomes an important plot point through the episode and even the next episode, that the Empire has, what's it called? Patrols, that's it. They're patrolling the area constantly. And this is one of the few areas you could land on the planet that you might not run it. Because it sounds like they patrol the whole planet, but this is one of the areas in which you're more likely to dodge one of the patrols or get in between.
Well, they need to be near the garrison for their
thing, and that's where the patrols will be strongest.
And so they need to be kind of close enough to get there.
Mm-hmm.
And so they need to be able to park far enough away from the garrison's patrols, but still within distance of where they are. And this is like the little sweet spot. But they've still got to get through these patrolled areas to get back to their camp.
Yeah, and even while they're walking back, there's this little scene here where they hear something coming, and it was specifically Cassian that heard it before she did. And so it shows that he's even more, aware and cautious. And then there's the TIE fighters. So those are the patrols that they were just talking about. And then this plot point actually is important for later things because the possible patrols could get them caught, and when they're in camp, another patrol, and they have to hide weapons and things. And so it's an explanation that explains why they park so far away, and also gives conflict for the future episodes. There we go! They did it! They simple line.
Potential plot holes filled in.
Filled in with something that makes logical sense. It's like water in a drought. Because it's not hard to do. This is why I don't want to praise it. This should be bare minimum expected, but it's lacking in so many shows, like so many of the other Star Wars shows, which just had huge plot holes that just did not make sense. And then there's Rings of Power and things.
Oh, I will perfectly praise it when they get it right, even if it... No, because it makes me happy to watch. It doesn't stress me or make me sit there and interrupt it complaining.
I don't want to be like a victim of all this bad media to the point where I'm willing to praise things that should be bare minimum. As a writer, it's 101 stuff. Avoid plot holes.
Perhaps, but if we don't praise it when they're doing right, what encourages them to do more?
I'm acknowledging it. Okay?
And that's it. We're pointing out when they do it right.
They have a long way to go before I will praise this show because it needs to be something exceptional, above average, to be praiseworthy. But look, I can enjoy just competently done shows, average shows, if it's just, nothing horrible or terrible in it. You can still watch them and enjoy them for what they are, but I'm not going to say it's phenomenal, best show ever or anything.
Neither am I, but I'm saying I'm enjoying it.
Yeah. But it's harder for me to even call the show good, even, because it needs to be something more than average to be good for me. So we see he adopts kind of personas, this character, and he has a persona in where he lives. Good contextualization. We get an insight to that. This lets us know some of the background of the world that they're on. So this isn't filler. This is actually important context that rises through natural conversation. Well done. That's how you want it to do. It's not just like a character telling another character something they already know. Cassian doesn't know this. And so so there's that scene. Also contextualizes how far they are away. this is part of this character arc where she wants to. She's seeing connections in terms of a possible organized rebellion, and she seems to be the only one connecting the dots. And she's trying to research one of these connections that's in another person's jurisdiction. And the fact is that she feels she can claim it because the thing that was stolen came from one of her areas, which gives her jurisdiction to research how it was found in someone else's. It shows the inner workings of the Empire, and it's logically justified that they have kind of jurisdictional bureaucracy that they have to deal with. You know,
and also a bit of seniority. Like, she's only been there for about a year and, you know, has less responsibilities, and reaching over to somebody else's area is a gutsy move.
Yeah. Introducing these two characters, it's actually quite effective, where one character is asleep. This guy sneaks up on him with a gun there, and saying, I gotcha. But we actually get one guy taking it seriously, one guy still, you know, he's not like, you know, uncommitted, but he fell asleep. But anyway, we get characterization from the introduction of these characters. Good. And then
the gun.
Look at that gun. Like, this annoys me because, all right, if they're paying attention to all these other things, how did like an AK-47 with no changes slip through under the radar into the final thing? And I know Star Wars is known for taking real-world guns, and then what they do, they add things onto it to sci-fi them. But they didn't do it with this. And it's just like, it's as out of place as it was in the trailer. It looks awful. I do like seeing like Coruscant. This is just small little things to enjoy. So the security guard that screwed everything up in the last episode is now returning to Coruscant. And something that was kind of cool is this elevator ride where he's, you know, all bright, sunny Coruscant. And then as he goes down, it gets darker and darker and more gloomy.
And you kind of feel that this is like the cheaper section. This is where the cheaper accommodation is. It's not as fancy.
Yeah. And, all right, hey, you know, that was kind of just a small thing, but I appreciate it. He has an interesting relationship with his mother.
You know, he slaps him and then hugs him.
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
You know, we get to see a bit more of that relationship and personality shine through as the episodes go.
And so this is where I am starting to get a little annoyed and pulls it down, is that, okay, we've been seeing competent stuff, but nothing particularly exciting, nothing particularly overly interesting. There's like passing interest. Oh, yeah, we get to see Coruscant, see this planet, there's a ship you land, characters talking here and there. Nothing really engaging, okay? It's just average. Like, because I think dialogue and character interactions can be really engaging, even as engaging as fight scenes. And I love fight scenes. Give them to me there. And look at House of the Dragon, where so much important stuff happens that you're on the edge of the seat constantly. This is important, but it's not like, oh, the fate of nations and characters at play as a result. It's just, we're getting characterization and stuff. And that's what I feel is letting me down in the show at the moment, where it's nothing particularly overly exciting. It's just average.
And look, I don't really need every episode, like every scene to be intense. I'm quite happy to just, you know, float along and enjoy characters developing and the scenes showing and the worlds shown. I'm kind of okay with that.
Yes, but there's that, and then there's what they're doing here, which is like 2 full episodes of this, essentially. A good 2 hours. It's a film's worth of plot, right? Oh, not, it's about 40 minutes each, so it's equivalent to film. It's not 2 full hours, but, and still, like, you could achieve so much in that time. There's slow burn, and then there is boring. And this is where I think there's a good argument to say this show is still pretty boring, you know? Like, it's not as boring as it was. I am acknowledging what is happening is interesting, but it's not incredible, not by a long shot. Again, I get an averagely interesting scene, but it does introduce a character. You know, it's Mon Mothma, I think that's her name. And like we see a Mandalorian armor in the corner over there. You know, Vescaso's got like expensive things. And it's a front to have a conversation about stuff, and it sets up, you know, the type of caution that the rebels need to go through and everything. And so, like, the caution that they have here makes it a little bit more tense, a little bit more interesting, better than other scenes.
because she's, pointing out that there's new faces everywhere that seem to be spying on everybody, and that makes her very cautious because she seems to be trying to pull a lot of funds to help here.
Yeah.
And moving funds when you're being watched is no easy task. And so this is what a lot of this conversation is. Now, I don't know what you think of her vehicle, her floating car, but I actually kind of like it. I love the colour. I like that it's sleek and showing that she's well off. And I kind of like that, it points out that she's got a driver, but he's new. And so I like this scene. I
like it too. In actual fact, it has a lot of similarity to the designs that we see in the prequels of the fancy cars. Like, Anakin even hijacks a fancy car when they're trying to chase down the assassin and stuff. And so it's a bit of visual consistency in terms of the upper class of Coruscant. And so, yeah, I think the car's great. More kind of characterization we see, and it's important. I mean, because this guy is their, I guess, infiltrator guy.
The inside man.
Inside man for the Empire, who was first on board, and we do find out why in the next episode, of why he's kind of defected and helping the rebels. Again, so I'm not saying that the scenes here aren't necessarily filler. They're not. They're establishing important things, and they are moving the story forward. They're just not particularly exciting. That's my issue. I don't know what they're really setting up with the husband. I think what they are setting up here is that he might end up betraying her, that he's more on board with the, I guess, aristocratic, upper class mentality, not thinking about people in need. Yeah, it shows a lot
about how he likes people that she dislikes, and they don't necessarily get along all that well. And so I kind of like that they're kind of slowly showing where this could be going.
Yep. Planning scene, again, it's important. We get some of the problems that they might face in infiltrating this base, where it comes from. And also, like, this is some moments where Cassian, he starts to actually be a bit more interesting of a character, where he starts to raise obvious objections, like, how are you going to escape TIE fighters? And and it's not like circumstantial, arbitrary. There's a yearly thing. Something happens in the sky that is going to block people flying through it easily, and if they can escape just in time before that, that'll block pursuit. And look, the reason why I think this isn't just circumstantial is that it's not out of the ordinary for certain stellar events to happen in the sky, even annually, and they've specifically timed the heist with that, the weight of the heist, and that also gives us them a decent kind of ticking clock that they have to get done to coincide with this to pull off the plan. And it's not like they set up a thing at this date and then some random thing happened astrologically that circumstantially helped them that they didn't plan on. No, they've set that up beforehand, so it fits. It's not an arbitrary thing. Perfectly justified from a narrative standpoint.
I agree. It works well. And before they even bring that bit up, he says, look, this is dumb. You're not going to get away from TIE fighters. How on earth are you supposed to get away? This is dumb. I'm not doing it. And then they explain how they're doing it. And he's like, oh, okay. This is becoming more plausible. And he continues to ask questions to figure out what the plan is, to know whether this is something that's going to risk his life more than necessary.
Next scene, this is her trying to get access to investigate something in the other guy's jurisdiction. The leader guy is like, no, we follow order. He gets his handling more than you, and he gets his things on time. I'm still waiting on your reports. And so we get to find out in this scene that she's actually diverting some of her attention from her main job with this side kind of research. So the scene, it's not pointless. So the reason why I'm pointing these out is because in the first two episodes, there were a lot of pointless scenes where these ones, no, they do something. Still not particularly blowing me away. I'm not like, wow, that was incredible, Still, I compare this to House of the Dragon. House of the Dragon has just conversation dialogue scenes that you get, whoa, I can really blow you away because of what is established, what's revealed, what's set up, all that. And this is still a bit of a wet noodle show, but it's satisfying. It's adequate noodles. It's not tasteless, but
so it's doing its job. It's meaty enough.
It's not a nicely seared and seasoned steak by any means. It's just some wet noodles, but sometimes noodles are palatable. Nothing too much. I know that it's part of setting up what happens next. He has to learn things, and wants to eat his food. But that's it. That's the first episode, okay? And
well, the fourth episode.
The first episode, fourth episode, okay? That's the entire episode. And if you were to ask someone, I'll ask you guys, what was the standout big moment in that episode? I don't think there was one. It was just stuff. At the end, it kind of ends a bit, and I get a bit deflated at the end. It's like, is that it? I was waiting something more interesting. Yes, it was interesting. And look, I can understand, and I'm on board with that. It's like, it's interesting enough to make you just kind of continue the journey and watch, but there's slow burn, and so this is why I'm still sitting on about a 5. Like, nothing really is blowing me away. But that's episode 4. We'll go to episode 5. Opens with a security guy. He's still moody. I mean, we get to see some interesting food, and I half wonder the food that they show him eating, right? I half wonder if this is the food, because it's got blue milk. We missed it. I'll play it a bit and we'll get it. I half wonder if this is the food you can get on the Star Wars Galactic Cruiser thing. Because it has just like weird kind of cereal.
I know, and he seems to really like this food because it seems like he's having the exact same dish later in the episode that's supposed to be, I don't know how much later, but it's the same food that he's eating and the same setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like they even close up. It's like, I'd almost bet money this is the food from the Galactic Star Cruiser thing. Anyway, so he needs a job. His mum says, I'll talk to your uncle or something. There's 2 scenes talking about that job with the uncle, so I hope it's, I don't know, something interesting that's going to be related to the plot, because they dwell a decent amount of time on it. Cassian wakes up, his stuff is missing, the other guy is just checking it, and I think it's actually a decent character building scene for this guy in particular, and so, you know, it shows a bit of characterization with Cassian, also the past. It's a corporate issue. I like it, there's a bit of connection there, that he grabbed one of the security guy's guns, and at least that looks a little more sci-fi-y. I mean, that's what, like, there's a good example of a Star Wars gun versus just an AK. So, look, it's an effective scene.
Yeah, they talk about the guy's tattoos and kind of, you know, it seems to be maybe a prison tattoo because it made it sound like that ANDOR had been in a juvie centre, and so they were just kind of discussing their histories by barely talking about it because they're both private people but say, yeah, I'll share enough.
And so the characters do feel distinct. Just not a lot of exciting stuff is done with them. All right, a scene with, is it Mon Mothma again and her husband. The daughter comes in. We find out that she doesn't get to spend a lot of time with the daughter. Look, if the daughter doesn't come up in an important way later on, this would be mostly filler, pointless for me, but I think they might actually, because if Mon Mothma has to abandon her seat as a senator to go straight all rebellion, which is what looked like in New Hope, that would have an interesting impact on her family life. And so, okay, I can see why they're setting up family then, and the relationship status there. The relationship between her and her husband seems odd. They constantly seem, it's like strained, yet, yeah.
Like there's the occasional dig, but he also acknowledges that, you know, she's got the powerful role and, you know, she gets the final say type thing. But also will take things out in control when he feels strongly about something.
And okay, so look, I think it's believable enough. Again, more characterization. And look, from what we learn of this guy here that's facing the camera, I think he's an interesting character, okay? And that's what the point of this scene is. And he, you know, I forget exactly what they talk about, but he's a true believer, essentially. And he wants to write a thesis or something about why the Empire is bad. And he's got a little technology thing that's older than the Empire, but reliable. And
he kind of, you know, points out that they rely on all these technologies by the Empire and nothing that they can actually run themselves. And so he likes his bit of tech, and he's got his manifesto about all the flaws in the system and how they can be fixed. And so you kind of get to see how enthusiastic he is about the cause, and that's good.
I mean, and you can tell that the people writing this are putting a lot more effort and paying far more attention to kind of just the world building elements about, you know, trying to make things a bit more consistent about, you know, Imperial tech versus previous tech and other things. And that's good. But that's it's still like the bare minimum I would, but Star Wars has been failing so much on like world building consistency. People getting shot in the gut and surviving, and then nowhere near anything, and then suddenly living and then having robot parts in them, and all these things. You see it in Boba Fett and also Mandalorian and stuff. We've got reviews here on Night's Watch if you want to see those dumpster fires. This is a good scene for Cassian. Turns out that they don't know how to calculate the weight on the ship, and that could impact takeoff.
They kind of have a whole payload that they're trying to transport, and so knowing the weight helps with thrusters and all sorts of things. So they need to know this, and they've just kind of realised they don't know how to know this.
Yes, and so, look, it was a good scene, shows how important he is. I like that Cassian starts to take a bit of control or assert himself. He's like, all right, I'm flying now. If my life is on the line, I'm doing this. Finally, there's at least more characterization because he's showing backbone, showing assertion, he's being more proactive. There's a more interesting character. Took us way too long to get it, I reckon. But that's some good stuff. It's like, my life is on the line, so I'm flying the ship. And there's another moment where, he's being a bit more assertive as well in this episode. And that makes me enjoy, the character a bit more, but still. Fifth episode.
He kind of showed hints of it when they're in the warehouse and trying to, not have somebody else take control of his life. And we kind of get to see it a bit more here that, if I'm at risk, I want to have some control.
Mm-hmm. This is the defector guy, the inside man. Seems to be setting up something that hopefully will relate to the mission and that shrine temple thing.
Or at least showing what sort of authority he has.
Yeah. We see the planet they came from, and that's the guy that has jurisdiction over there. He's setting up, new Imperial control. And not much is achieved in this scene apart from showing the fallout of what happened on that planet, which I'm fine with. It's like,
and perhaps showing where the new headquarters will be.
Yeah, well, if they go back to the planet, that would be important. But even if not that, sometimes it's good just to see the results of what happened at a certain event or scene, just to give proper conclusion. So I'm fine with that. We don't really see the characters, like the girl that was helping him out, and we don't really know the relationship. So she's still on that planet. They're practicing, marching, and everything. And this is actually a good scene for Cassian as well, because it reveals how perceptive he is. First, he suggests that someone switch, so the gun is facing on the outside, because he thinks that's just what they would do in the Empire. But then they question, like, you've been paying attention to just how, if all the people on his left hand are right-handed, so they ask him, this person is like right-handed, and this person left-handed. And so he's actually quite competent, quite observant,
and knows weapons enough that if you're holding a gun and you're left-handed, you want to be able to
face it on the outside,
face it on the side that you're going to be able to be most accurate. And so it's a good little scene where the leader actually pulls up and says, hold on, what else can you tell us? And
I laugh because, again, it's a competent scene. Doesn't blow me away. Nothing blew me away in it, but it's like, okay, yeah, it's like, that's the show. It's like, okay, yeah. The show. TIE fighter comes in, you got a duck, and pretending. It's a funny little thing, right? It shows like the TIE fighter part's being a jerk, where he flies off to the side, and they think his guy is like, nah, he's not gone. And whoever's flying the thing purposely comes in to swoop really low and give them a fright.
If you're doing these sort of sweeps every day and you've just got to do the same sort of rounds all over the place, and you've got some people that you can freak out without hurting, like I can imagine, a 20-year-old pilot that's just like, this can be some fun, I'm going to freak these guys out.
Yeah. So, yeah, it works. Does it blow me away? Is it like House of Dragons Revelation, where someone reveals that someone might have slept with someone and you're like, oh, that's going to impact the entire empire and things could lead to war? No, it's none of that. It's just like, oh, yeah. We see this guy basically, his relationship with the planet is a bit contextualized here, and the other people that's under him. Again, more set up and goes on, but it's not unimportant scenes. Like, Cassian's always checking. He was given like a crystal, it's a kyber crystal that's worth like a lot of money. It's making sure it's always there because it comes up later, and so it makes sense that he's checking things and that someone noticed that he might have it because the other character pulls it out later. Okay, so this is where we find out that she's frustrated and that she's the one seeing. It's revealed she's connecting the dots. That's and I kind of I like that they show logic here because they're basically saying they think that these actions against the Empire are spread out too far to be organized. But then she says, if I was doing it, that's exactly how I do it, to give that impression. And that makes her think that it is organized and that there might be an organized resistance going on. And that's perfectly logically justified.
Yeah, she kind of uses the line, it's too random to be random. And when you think about it, like, events often happen, there might be another one close by, and if it's random,
actually, there
can be duplicates close by to each other. Right. But if they're scattered perfectly away from each other to not seem related, I can kind of understand that quite.
That's actually a good way to put it, because if it was true random, sometimes, if there's enough of them, you will find certain events, well, these two happen close. There's a lot of other spread ones, all these ones over here also happen close and everything, where it seems like all of these ones have too even a dispersion to mimic randomness. And so, okay, I can give it to it. I'll acknowledge it. They burn the model, and look, another small thing, okay? Because sometimes you have people planning out like their thing and they have this perfect model made for their plan, and you're like, what, someone made that model? Where did that model come from? And they actually it was made by the kid or one of the younger guys, and he made it to scale, and it might be one of his hobbies or something like that. And so, good! Even potential little things that might be like, where did the model come from? It's a pretty good model. It's like they even explain that in the show with and it's what I've been saying for a long time. A simple line can do it.
Yeah, and he's just got a simple thing like, I'll move this bit. It's a little bit touchy or something like that, yeah.
Well, at one point he even said the glue's still drying. I'll move that. And so just by him saying the glue's still drying lets us know, he made it. And it might be a hobby because he's actually handling it with more care than the others. And then he even says, it's not to scale or something like that on the inside.
Yeah, like this part's not to scale.
Yeah. That's good characterization. We have characters that feel like people. We even have hobbies amongst them that they're using in weird tangential things that also can explain what is usually a plot hole. Because I've seen movies where, they're making a plan and there's a perfect model and it's just there. It just came out of nowhere. And so
it's a cute little side bit of information to build his character.
There is competence on display, but not incredible skill, is what is my judgment at the moment. Though, in comparison to Rings of Power and other Star Wars shows,
they are shining.
People might consider it incredible skill because it's a leap up in quality. It is the best Star Wars we've gotten in a while. I'm definitely believe that and acknowledge that. All right, so they're going off to their mission. Again, this is the next scene about the guy's job and what he'll do. They're walking. So
they're now getting really close to the big day, and so now they need to get there.
Okay, this is they're talking about the inside man here. Okay, and I think that's where she explains briefly about this guy here. Okay, this was pretty decent, but it could have backfired. Basically, he wants fewer people on demand, and he sets it up like saying, you didn't paint the thing, so no, you're all on duty. And then the guy says, but it's a special moment. Can we all go out? And this would remove culpability from him, because if anyone questions anyone else, it's like, no, the leader guy, he was insistent that we did it. And it was only, on guard duty. And it's only through insistence from everyone else that there was a lesser kind of staffing during the event. And it is because it's coinciding with the thing that is going to help them escape. And so that actually marries together decently.
And it also shows he knows his men well enough that, this is important to them because it's the only highlight for being stationed on this planet. Like, it's the only special thing that they could possibly have while stationed here. And they all want to see it.
It could have backfired if they accepted his judgment and say, we have to paint the thing so everyone has to stay on duty. But what he would have done then is walked away, stopped, and then pretended to think better. I was like, look, it's one in a year event, I suppose, if you guarantee you'll paint it. And so I guess even if it backfired and the people didn't insist, he could pretend to show a bit of charity. And so I guess, it fits. And even if it backfired, he could still make it work the way he wanted, but it works perfectly the way he wanted. And he even kind of smiles, as he's walking away. Where is it? There it is. He's like, exactly what I wanted. Okay, it shows that he's clever, he's working, it's decent, right? It's competently executed. All right, so this is where that guy steals the crystal and he wants to know the truth. I'm not sure that crystal would send this guy off on such a, we can't trust him thing. So he has something that's really expensive around his neck. Why is he overreacting to it?
Well, I feel like here he's worried that he's a spy and that's his payment for spying on them, because he seemed to have come with nothing, just the shirt on his back and whatever he could grab, which is like the gun and not much else. And so here he's like, what's this? Are you being paid to spy on us and turn us in? Maybe. It seemed a bit of an extreme overreaction. And that's the whole point. That's what ANDOR points out. He said, look, you're in the last day before a heist. Everybody's scared. You're looking for a reason to potentially back out of this. But his logic, who brings a treasure to a robbery? It's a family heirloom. Stuff you, give it back. I mean, there's a lot, this guy doesn't have to think too much to figure out many logical reasons why ANDOR could have that thing, but it's like, you brought a very valuable thing to a robbery. A lot of people can do that, You see, that's why I kind of like where ANDOR comes in and says, look, the day before something big like this, it's natural to panic and to look at everybody else as doing something wrong. What he said then, I need to know who I'm riding with, right? I think they could have set that up better to have this guy suspect him a bit more than just expensive rock, Could have been done better, but anyway, he resolves it eventually by, we'll have to talk about it later, and then later on, ANDOR just comes out and says, yeah, I'm getting paid to do it. Okay, yeah, sure. It's like, you needed somebody to fill in your gaps. I'm the one. I'm getting paid for it. You believe in the cause, but I believe in getting paid. Yeah, it works. And look, I do agree with him getting it out in the open to find out, if you guys have an issue with that I'm on the job and that I'm getting paid and I can't trust you, then you leave. And so that works as well. That part does. Oh, that's right. Because they ask who's afraid, and he says, I'm afraid, but there's a difference between being afraid and losing your nerve, and he wants to make sure that no one else has lost their nerve working with him, basically, I think that scene is. And so some of it does play out all right, but the setup about the rock, I'm still not on board with. Anyway, we'll move to a scene with Mothma and the husband. What do they talk about again there? So he's noticed a new foundation or something that she's set up. Oh, that's right. And he's like, why didn't you tell me? And she said, well, I didn't think you'd be interested. It's charitable. That's right. It's a bit of a nasty dig. Once again, they keep jabbing at each other, so you can tell there's sort of some uncomfortable relationship. And she did explain that it's hard to move money around, and this is clearly one of the false front charities she has to move the money there, and it could cause suspicion. The husband, okay, so, all right, that can build tension with what might happen with her. They have to alert that the person that they're there, so they light a fire. This is the scene where he's angry at, ANDOR, and that he's probably going to go hunt him down on his own, probably. Because he still wants to avenge this murderer that cost him his job. My prediction with his arc, and if I'm correct, it means it's predictable, but it's not horribly predictable, it just seems obvious, right? So he is going to hunt ANDOR on his own initiative. He's so upset that he screwed up his, career that he's just going to do it himself. He's not going to catch him, but he's going to be instrumental in doing something that will make them problematic for the rebels or anything that will get him noticed by the Empire, and he will be hired by the Empire and join the lady in their hunt for the rebels. That's my prediction. Let's see where that goes. I think it's pretty predictable and obvious. I'd like to be wrong, because it means it's not predictable and something else interesting hopefully happens. But that's where I think it'll go. We'll see if I'm right. So they let them know where they are. They're getting ready for the job. Oh yeah, this is sorry, maybe I got wrong with that, but this is where they say what happened to the... Oh no, him, Imperial Prefect. Yeah, he kind of says what his backstory is and why he's with the rebels, and that's his way of apologising, and Andor goes, yeah, okay. And that works, he has trouble being touchy-feely, but he gives a concession that he can do, and Cassian seems to take that.
She walks up. So there is like a side plot that this lady and the other girl are doing something different as part of the heist.
Yeah, that Andor doesn't need to know about, and so they're going to go do something and meet up later.
I have a feeling it's the side plot that she's doing is to discover what the Empire has been working on, and they're going to discover the Death Star. That's my prediction with them. I think it's just really obvious. I hope I'm wrong, but... And it's not terrible plotting. It just...
Because they do need to find... The rebels do need to find out sometime, I suppose.
They do, and it's like, what plot points do you have to work with? And they want to try and integrate this story with Rogue One and other things, and so... most likely that's how they'll
integrate it. If it fits in and they do it well, I'm okay with it.
Like, even if it's predictable, if the execution is competent, okay. And the execution so far is competent, it's just not exciting. It's not blowing me away. And it would be good to, I don't know, be surprised by something. I hope I am, because then I would be, I hope I'm wrong, because then I would be surprised. We'll see. I did like this scene where the lead, so here's this guy here.
The recruiter is anxious because he knows that this is the night before the big event. And so he's trying to listen into the radio in case something's happened. And the assistant's just like, nothing's happening now that you need to know about. This is all lead up.
He acknowledges that he made a big risk hiring Cassian, and that it could go wrong, and he wasn't as careful. And I like, showing doubt to, that it's good. It builds some tension. And that's the episode. And so, still, like, again, what was the standout, blow you away moment in that episode?
That I like it and I want to come back for more, I guess.
There's nothing really, like, I looked at House of the Dragon, where you can, usually in each episode, there's like one big moment, they're like, oh, my favourite scene, or this was really impactful and powerful, or something, okay? And so, nowhere near as good as something as House of the Dragons, nowhere near as terrible as something like Rings of Power. I'm still sitting on like a 5 out of 10 for it. I want more. I want something more exciting for me to actually say, oh, it's good. I enjoy it, everything. It's watchable enough. And look, I'm interested to see what happens. I think the next episode might actually be good. It's the heist, right?
Right. And so I'm still on the line of 5 is where you don't mind if you watch it or not. Like, it's good enough. 6 is where it's past the line where you would come back for more on purpose.
And you're coming back.
Yeah. I feel like I want to see the heist. I want to see how the senator evolves and how the blonde Empire chick continues to investigate the rebels. I feel like there's enough going for it that I want to come back for more. And for me, that puts it over the line.
Okay, well, see, I want to come back for more, not because I'm enjoying it. Just I have interest. It's like, all right, I'm interested to see how this plays out. But not because, like, oh, the last episodes were so good, I got such an emotional thrill and engagement that I'm going to get that out. I feel I'm going to get it in the next episode. But the next episode is promising to have a bit more action. I'm interested in how the heist will play out. And if they are able to put the competence that they've shown in these episodes to play in this next one, in something that's going to be more engaging and exciting, it might have the highest chance of being a good episode out of what we have here. But that's my feelings on Andor. These ones were better than episode 1 and 2. Still not great. But
and we noticed in the comments that we've got people on both sides of this as well from the last time we did the review, that there are some people not enjoying it and thinking it's boring, and others that are really enjoying it.
Oh, and I'm glad they're enjoying it. So, good.
Absolutely. And so I'm interested to see what you all think about these 2 episodes, because I think it's continuing to pick up. I think a lot of people feel
it'll pick up. I've seen a lot of people that, hey, it's a slow burn, but that's okay if it's decent. I honestly need more. I need more.
You don't have the time for slow burns.
No, I can enjoy slow burns, but have something in there that engages you even more. Anyway, I've said enough on my thoughts on that. Let us know what you think of it in the comments below. Thank you for joining us, and as always, stay on watch.